Hello, everybody. How are you? How are things in your world? Back with another video about Wichita, and this time we're going to talk about the geography, guys. And of course, this is another parody video on a parody channel. And first, we're going to talk about the Arkansas River that flows through Wichita, bringing life to this booming city. And the thing about it is that a lot of people don't realize the Arkansas River starts way up in Colorado, runs through Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Mississippi. And a lot of people say, well, why is it called the Arkansas River if it flows through all of those states? And the answer is that Arkansas won the branding rights in the 1850s. Now, much like Staples Center or any other athletic facility sells the branding rights, so did the United States of America sell the branding rights to the Arkansas River back in 1850. Now, this is interesting because we're talking about Wichita. The biggest competitor, or the closest bid to the Arkansas bid, was Kansas. They were going to call it the Kansas River, and a lot of people don't know this. For a long time, the Kansas contingent, the people that were making the bid, they wanted to call it the Wichita River because of its prominence and its importance for that city and that town at the time. That town that was going to play such an important role in the independence of Kansas and the growth of Kansas. They wanted to honor that by naming the river after the city. But of course, Arkansas came through with the bid. Now, again, they're not sure if there were some shenanigans going on under the table, behind the scenes, perhaps some payoffs. Maybe some horses ended up in somebody's stable that they didn't pay for, maybe a gift, we don't know. But nonetheless, it was a long time ago, and Arkansas won the day. But nonetheless, it flows from the north, south, southeast through the city as it winds its way toward those crooks in Arkansas that, I'm not saying some shenanigans went on that they were able to bid for the city's name, for the river's name, but come on, okay, all right, okay. I mean, come on now. I mean, let's be honest. Come on. So they made the bid and won it, and it's interesting because there's a lot of tributaries that are coming into the Arkansas River. You might think, well, it just flows through and everybody knows it. Everybody from the area knows it. They grew up on the river. They probably bathed in the river up to the age of 5 because, let's be honest, if you're a mom and you get your kid ready to go outside, what happens when you get your kid cleaned and ready to go outside, completely clothed? And they go outside, what happens within 5 minutes of a kid that's under 5 years old? Yeah, they're rolling in the mud, they're rolling in the dirt, they're climbing trees, they're getting bugs in their hair. Okay, they're riding the dog. They are a germ factory within 3 to 5 minutes of you letting them outside the door, maybe out in the backyard. So in the early days of Wichita, up through the early 2000s, really, it wasn't unusual for a mother, a father, a parent to, get their kid ready to go outside, and then they'd be so dirty within 5 minutes, they'd take them down to the river and just rinse them like a shirt. You just hold your kid by the shoulders, not tight, doesn't hurt the kid. You just kind of rinse them off. You go. Now, if you have some Tide laundry detergent, you can pour it on them and pour it on their clothes and get a kind of a sudsy rinse of the entire situation, their clothes and their body. And that's one reason the Arkansas River has such an emotional attachment to so many people in Wichita, is a lot of them got rinsed off by their mom in that river for years, sometimes up to the age of 17. They'd go by themselves. After 13, 14 years old, they'd go down to the river, kind of swish around, and sometimes they'd pour some Tide detergent on their head and shampoo it and get a whole shower thing going in the river. It's not unusual today. You don't see it as much, but it's not unusual today to see some of the more rural edges of the city where the whole family get in there. Grandma, grandpa, they all get in there and take a little dip, just to stay fresh and clean, man. That's to stay fresh and clean. So, what are the tributaries to the Arkansas? Well, the Little Arkansas. Now, that was some original branding right there. Comes in from the north and then hooks up with the Arkansas kind of around the downtown area. Then over on the east side, you get Chisholm Creek. That comes in kind of south of the city a little bit. And then the Chisholm Creek has tributaries coming in there. All right, a bunch of forks. Including then later on Gypsum Creek. You got the Gypsum has its own tributary, so you can see this entire network, and that's Dry Creek, which isn't even water; it's just air. It's the only creek in the area that is so dry it doesn't even have any water. It's two things. Sometimes it's just pure air that's going down the riverbed, but that helps to aerate the water of the Gypsum and therefore the Little Arkansas. And the Arkansas gives it kind of a lighter feel, almost like a champagne feel. But then the other thing that is in the Dry Creek is whiskey. And a lot of times up in that, once you get up at that high into the sort of the backcountry where the Dry Creek is, you're going to have some people running some illegal stills, okay? And when the coppers come around in their 55 Chevys trying to bust up the stills, and they come up on the porch and they go, hey, Slim, what you got going over here? And Slim says, oh, that's just that is a science project that old Rusty has for his 5th grade class over there to the school. Well, that story has been used multiple times and is not flying anymore. So a lot of times what they'll do is they'll empty their illegal, moonshine into the creek, into what is called Dry Creek. And sometimes that moonshine comes racing down. Now, depending on the load, you might be standing in the creek. Maybe you're working on maybe you're a teacher, a biology teacher, and you're doing a field trip with your class and you're going over the flora and fauna of the area, and you know that there is no water in the creek, so there's no danger. And then all of a sudden there is basically a torrent, what they would call a flash flood of moonshine shooting down Dry Creek. Well, that's somebody up creek or up river, you could say, getting rid of their inventory because the coppers are coming around and checking them out. They don't want to get caught. It's much easier to flush that inventory and start over. All right, you can't make a lot of moonshine when you're sitting in the county courthouse cell. All right. So that is we talked about Dry Creek. Now there are some others. Big Slough Creek. How do you pronounce it? Somebody pronounce it. Correct my pronunciation there. And Cowskin Creek is another one. They run south, okay, and then let's see. They run south through the western portion of Wichita, and then you have a tributary of the Walnut River, okay, which is nearby, and that tributary is called 4 Mile Creek. Now, it used to be called 3 Mile Creek, but there was a residential developer that didn't think that had enough of a romantic feel. 3 Mile Creek, it felt unfinished in terms of marketing the homes that are built along that area. So this particular developer said, hey, let's call it 4 Mile Creek. That gives it an even number, and it will be much more conducive to sales, real estate sales, because it fits into the zen of the even number. Okay, much like Marie Kondo's, if you don't find that the things that you have spark joy, well, just get rid of them. And she uses so much of that zen in her approach to belongings. Well, in this case, they wanted the zen and the good feelings of an even number rather than 3 Mile. It didn't sound like 3 Mile, whereas 4 Mile. 4 Mile Creek. Hey, where do you live? Well, we're up there to 4 Mile Creek. I'm like, ooh, nice. People are like, that's a nice neighborhood. So it was all marketing, much like the Hollywood sign in Los Angeles was originally called Hollywood Land, it said, which was promoting the neighborhood, which was Hollywood Land. All right. And so we talked about that. That's 4 Mile Creek, formerly 3 Mile Creek, and that's a tributary to the Walnut River. Now, the total area is just over 170 square miles. Now, it used to be, most of that's land, and just a very small part of that is water. It's not an area that is known to have big lakes, okay, or big bodies of water nearby. There's a few ponds, there's a few duck ponds, but mostly the biggest body of water is the Arkansas River. That's why the city is centered over it, and the entire lifestyle of the city is centered. And this is where geography plays such an important part of a city like Wichita. And it goes much farther than just rinsing off your kid and pouring some Tide detergent on their head in 1957, okay? Because they're germ factories. It's the whole industrial base, the educational base, the commercial base, the way the residences are built on either side of the city overlooking the city. It's the annual 4th of July parade where they send the boats down the river. It's the Christmas parade with the boats going down the river, lighted up in different red and green bulbs on the masts of the ships and on the rowboats and on the moonshine runners that run up and down the river, carting moonshine to different areas north and south of Wichita. So the river is the city. See what I'm saying? From the very beginning, when Wichita was established in 1695, it's just been the center of the city. Now, there are bridges, of course, that go across the river, of course. But you can still take the original ferries. There was 2 or 3 ferries that went across the river. You could still take them. Now your trip will be much longer. And it's a rope system, and they're going to ask you to get on the rope. So they load the thing with cars, and then the people that drive the cars, they get out of the car. It's not like, up in Vancouver where you sit in the car, or there's a bar that you can go to, okay, or Olympia, Washington, or Edmonton, Alberta, or Ottawa, okay. They all have extensive ferry systems that are automatic. This is the old school, guys, the 1850s, 1860s. And you will be required to get out and pull that rope, because if you don't, then nobody's getting across, because it takes everybody leaning their back in. And if you decide to get on the ferry and you decide not to pull the rope because you say, oh, I didn't know, well, then you're going to get a visit from the local officials, because that is a jailable offense, because what you're doing is you're holding up the commerce and the lifestyle of not just yourself, but up to 10, 12 other cars, okay? So be careful. That's part of why we're getting the information out about cities like Wichita and some of their rules, so that you don't get caught. You don't get there on vacation. You're like, the kids are like, Dad, let's take the ferry. That'll be fun, because you're from Detroit or somewhere. And you get on the ferry and you don't pull the rope. Well, guess what? Daddy's going to jail, right? And, maybe there isn't. Maybe mom doesn't have a license, and Junior, or the oldest kid, is 12 years old. So now Junior has to drive the car all the way back to Detroit while Dad rots in jail serving a 2-month sentence. You don't want it to happen. So now we're talking about the square miles. So that's a pretty sizable town, guys. 170 square miles is a sizable town. Now, 30 of those square miles are dedicated to pancake breakfast places. So if you like pancakes, if you like strawberries in your pancakes, if you like grapes, if you like raisins, if you like pepperoni in your pancakes, that's a big one, guys. Pepperoni pancakes are really big in Wichita. You're going to love it, because 30 square miles of that 170 square miles of the city are dedicated to pancake places. They want you to get up. They want you to be ready to go, guys. And they know a good pancake is going to is going to get you going in the morning. Well, that's pretty much it about the geography. This is just a short one. We want to cover it because it's such an important part of the personality of the city, is the geography in which it formed. Come on back. We have so much more.